Okay, back to Muktzeh. Last thing we were learning in Muktzeh was things that break. So if they're still usable, like the original usage was, so they're not Muktzeh. But if they're not usable, so then they are Muktzeh. So you have a very practical question. If a button falls off on Shabbos from your garment, a button falls off, is it Muktzeh or is it not Muktzeh? So there's a lot of different opinions in halacha. More or less the compromise in the halacha is, if it's an expensive button that you're planning to put back because you can't get such a button anywhere else, so then it's not Muktzeh. But it's a button that's a regular standard, black button, whatever, that you could, so then they paskin it is Muktzeh. But people should be careful if a button falls off from your jacket or whatever. On Shabbos, you have to be aware that it might be Muktzeh. Again, some poskim hold every button is Muktzeh. But great opinions say that if you were planning to put it back, you're planning to sew that particular button, then it's not Muktzeh. Okay, broken dishes, broken glasses. I'll give you an example. If somebody broke their glasses in a way that you can't wear them. For instance, they broke here down the middle. Yeah, you can't wear them. So then they're completely Muktzeh on Shabbos. But for instance, let's say one temple fell off. So technically you could wear it like this, it's not exactly even, but you could still use it. So then it wouldn't be Muktzeh. But I'll give you another example. What happens if an eyeglass falls out on Shabbos from the glasses? Years ago they used to have, you can just snap it back in. Now you have to make screws with all that. So even the screws for sure you can't put back on Shabbos. But even an eyeglass that falls out, halachically you can't put it back in on Shabbos because that's what's called tikkun money. You're fixing the broken thing. It was not usable and now it's usable. So you're fixing something on Shabbos, so that would be forbidden also.
If it's literally popped out, but it's still in the frame, you could pop it in.
If it's not completely fall out, if it didn't completely fall out, so then you could put it back in. But if it completely fell out, you can't put it back in. That's even if you don't have to screw it. If you have to screw it in, then for sure it's fixing. Okay, by the way, if a mezuzah falls off, it's also Muktzeh, because you have to put it back on. You're not allowed to put it back on Shabbos. Okay, next classification over here is... No, I'm saying if it's going to be on the floor, so a mezuzah is being defiled, so then you could pick it up and just, to the closest place, just to make it not disrespectful anymore. So in the case, it's still there. Halachically, you're not allowed to leave a mezuzah on the floor in the case. But I'm saying if it fell down, let's say, on the table. It didn't fall on the floor, it fell on the table. So then you wouldn't be allowed to move it on Shabbos. It's Muktzeh. Okay, shh. Hello. Okay, now, food, any edible food, as is not Muktzeh on Shabbos. Even though you hate it, you don't want it, it's still food, it's not considered edible foods. Inedible foods, many times are Muktzeh on Shabbos. We'll learn a lot of very practical examples of this. Okay, we'll leave about the animal food, we leave out. Okay. Now, raw egg is not Muktzeh. Why is it a Muktzeh? Because many people, especially the guys, think they have a nice voice. Goggle-moggle they make from it, they mash up an egg with some sugar and they drink it, they think it helps the voice. So therefore, because people do eat raw eggs in that case, so then it's not Muktzeh. But let's say you have an example, I'll give you an example right away, raw meat. But the reason why raw egg is not, because a lot of times you have in the fridge raw eggs, and you have to get to something, you need to move the eggs. You have a carton of eggs, right? And it's blocking something in the fridge. If it would be Muktzeh, you would have a problem moving it to get something behind it, like we'll soon learn in a second. But the fact raw eggs are not Muktzeh because people do use it as raw eggs. But for instance, raw meat is muktzeh on Shabbos. It's not edible. You can't cook it on Shabbos. Therefore, for instance, raw meat on Yom Tif is not muktzeh. Because Yom Tif, you could cook it, you can eat it. So therefore, it's not muktzeh because it's edible on Yom Tif. But Shabbos, raw meat is not edible. If it's not edible, it's completely muktzeh. So therefore, what was that? Where do you have to be very careful with this? Very simple din. You have in your freezer, there's ice cream. You want to get this, you serve ice cream or icy, whatever. Friday night to Shabbos day. Problem is, in front of the ice cream is raw meat, frozen raw meat. Now, in order to get to the ice cream, you have to move away the raw meat and then get to the ice cream. So you can't. So what happens if the freezer is full? You can't even move it out a little, The only way to get to the ice cream is by taking out the raw meat from the freezer. You wouldn't be allowed to because it's mamish muktzeh. Even though you need the place to get to the ice cream, but the bottom line is it's still completely muktzeh. It's not keli shemelachta le'isr. It's completely muktzeh. If it's completely muktzeh, then you couldn't do it. What?
Back in the day, didn't they take meat sometimes to use as like on an eye sore or something?
That's not using it as food.
Could you, because it could
1 second. He says, during Chazal's time, halacha says this, in the time of Chazal, people used to chew on raw meat. That's what the Gemara says, used to chew on raw meat. So therefore, in old halacha, so to speak, it's not Kabbalah, it's facts. In a time when people would chew on raw meat, then raw meat wouldn't be muktzeh because you can chew it. It's a food, If people, just like they started eating raw fish with sushi, yeah? If people start eating again raw meat, which is starting slowly, whatever they call this tartar or whatever they call that stuff. So then, it's not pshat chas v'shom, the halacha changes, the facts change. And if the facts change, then the halacha is, that halacha says if it's not edible, it's muktzeh. If it's edible, it's not muktzeh. So again, if it's edible, then it's not muktzeh. If it's not edible, it is muktzeh. Right now, raw meat and raw fish depends what type of raw fish. Sushi grade raw fish that people use for sushi wouldn't be muktzeh.
So tartar doesn't take away all meat?
No, it's not going to take away all meat. Not yet. Not yet.
Because it's very common in a lot of...
But it's not all meats and a certain meat and...
Okay, and what about using it not as food, but as like an ice patch? Because people did use meat as patch for their...
You can't use it because if it's complete... I'll give you another example. Let's say you have... Okay. Any food that could be eaten raw is automatically not muktzeh. Let's say it's even frozen. Okay, all you have to do is take it out of the freezer and defrost it. It's edible. But what happens if we have a can of raw beans that are not edible? Or, a bag of peas, that's not edible. You have to cook it. That's mamish muktzeh. So if it would be keli shemelachta le'isr, then you'd be allowed to take it out and put it as a, if you get a bang,
Isn't it?
Then tzarech gufa, then you're using it for something, but it's completely muktzeh. You can't move it for anything.
Even though it could be designated as...
No, because it's not. It's made for food. For instance, it says in halacha like this: what happens if they would give a dog raw meat? Sometimes, so they say, but if it's expensive meat, that you're not going to give to a dog. So then you can't say that it's not muktzeh. You're not, because a human can't eat, it's not cooked. A dog you're not going to give it to. So it's not designated not as human food, not as animal food. Anything which is designated, by the way, for animal food is also not muktzeh.
Frozen peas it's like a thing that if you have
but it's still totally muktzeh.
Even though it's like a known...
That would be, if it would be kelish melachta lis, it'd be mutter l'tzerech gufay. That would be tzerech gufay, taking it for something permissible. But this is completely muktzeh. Tzerech gufay is not going to help.
A rock is muktzeh, right?
Only if you designated it before Shabbos permanently.
Right.
As what? As a door stopper. Now, what are you designating them? If you have a pack of frozen peas, and it's designated in your freezer as an ice pack, yes, then it's not muktzeh.
No, but once they fall, you can eat them. You don't have to cook them.
I'm talking about peas that are not edible raw. Raw, the stuff that's raw. No, raw peas are usually not halachic. Huh?
Raw peas are not cooked very hard. You don't freeze them, they're just,
Yeah, but people don't eat raw peas.
Carrots.
Huh?
Carrots. Diced.
Carrots you could eat raw.
I'm saying, okay.
But peas, nobody eats raw peas. So whether they're frozen or not. If you have a bag, for the chont, you have a bag of barley and a bag of beans, and right? Now you can't eat them like that. So a bag of barley in your house on Shabbos is completely muktzeh. So if it's on your counter, you can't take it and put it away. You want to move it away to get to something behind it, you wouldn't be allowed to do it because it's completely muktzeh. If it would be edible, then it's not muktzeh at all. So again, the whole concept of visit raw popcorn. Nobody eats raw popcorn. You have to pop it. Now, Yom Tov, technically, you could pop it. And now you can cook it in a pan, whatever. But for instance, if somebody made dough, challah dough, not this dough, challah dough.
Batzek.
Huh? Batzek, yeah, batzek. They made a dough that's not edible, it's completely muktzeh. Now, fresh vegetables that are also not eaten, like a potato, a raw potato, is muktzeh on Shabbos. It's not edible, that's it. Or, let's see what else they use.
he has to go when he said cookie dough. A lot of people just eat cookie dough right out of the...
Cookie dough, which is edible, is not muktzeh taka.
Cookie dough that you make to bake.
Doesn't matter, but it's edible. People eat, raw eggs are also normally made to cook. But there are.
But they say it's not good for you. Meaning they say it's salmonella and a lot of different
No, salmonella, anything you eat, you can't drink the water, you might die.
That's the case.
If you drink water for 300 years, you're gonna die. Yeah, of course you're gonna die. No, cookie dough, people eat cookie dough a little bit. It doesn't, when they eat raw eggs, gogamo, we think they eat 10 eggs. They eat a little bit, part of an egg. Again, cookie dough, that people do eat. Okay, they tell you don't eat a lot because it's not healthy, but it's edible. It is edible. And years ago when they didn't worry about salmonella, they would eat a lot of it. So again, this is not Kabbalah. Raw rice is muktzeh. Okay, cooked rice is not muktzeh. But anything somebody is edible, and they froze it, so it's automatically not muktzeh because you could take it out on Shabbos, defrost it, and it's edible. But something you have to cook or bake. But again, all these things by Yom Tov are not muktzeh because Yom Tov you could cook. So raw barley, raw beans, raw meat, all that stuff.
Like they put on the sauce, they put some rice.
Yeah.
So you can use the shaker on Shabbat.
Yeah, because the rice is more important than the. That's not a problem. What? What? Adash shchita? No, we're not saying you have to throw. You can't move it on Shabbos.
If it's not out of freezer, raw meat, it can go stale.
Why it's out of the
Let me just think of how many cases I'm going to give you. For loss of money, you can't desecrate Shabbos, sir. No, sorry. Can somebody say, if I got non-kosher meat, yeah? Hello? I got non-kosher meat. I can't eat it. Yes? Once I have to throw it out? I is baltashchis. I'm wasting food. Torah says you're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to eat it, period.
So if you throw from the fridge, you're not allowed to put it there.
No.
With a shino even on?
How you with a shini? Yeah, but how are you going to do? Not if it's for the sake of the muktzeh. No.
The dustpan.
Huh?
The dustpan. You don't normally pick up the dustpan.
But it's still, yeah, but it's still. Kalachar yad is only if it's not for the sake of the muktzeh. Here's for the sake of the muktzeh. If it's in the way, you can kick it out of the way.
Anything that's kalachayat, no?
Yeah, but not, we'll learn when we learn those dinim, we'll learn not every time is a mutter kalachayat.
In this situation.
But in this situation, you kick it off to the side.
What about kicking it back to the pitch?
I'm trying to figure out how you can kick it up.
The guy's very good at soccer.
Yeah, but you don't even have a running start. You just go pship, like a helicopter straight up. A plane needs to run off. That must be a fantastic soccer player. If a guy could do it, they should ask the Shaila. We'll figure it out for them. Okay, but again, all these things, but I'll tell you this. Okay, it's later. Right? But Marshall, instant coffee, okay, again, those things are not muktzeh because you could make them on Shabbos in a kosher permissible way. Bones that are not edible. Some bones, you can eat the marrow inside the bone, so those are not muktzeh. But bones that are not edible, they're completely muktzeh. Unless if you're planning to give it to your dog, then it's edible for the dogs or cat or whatever. Huh?
Sometimes they put it for tasting, they chop it.
Yeah, but then again, you can't cook it to throw, so it's not going to... If you're there from before... Huh? It's moksha, by the way, afterwards. We'll learn tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, about egg peels. You crack open nuts on Shabbos. These are big issues.